We want some audio.
I'm gonna leave some audio recording, if you don't mind.
You're gonna record me? Oh my God, the pressure is on. You're gonna freak me out.
I can edit it, don't worry. Don't worry.
As long as you're not videotaping.
No video at all.
Hey, Pop, you gonna learn about some birds?
Yes, I like to chase the birds.
What terrier doesn't like to chase things, right?
Yeah, right.
You're good to go? Do you wanna come up and... Come on, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do a little intro, welcome, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for being here, and thank you as well to Wild Delight for being here with us at Brown's today. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time, learn about what birds like to eat what, and you're the expert. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to you.
That wasn't too painful. Let's give it. Good morning, everybody. Are we awake? Yeah, we ready to go? My name is Sam Laverty, and full disclosure, I am a salesperson with the Wild Delight Company. Full disclosure. Now, that being said, I have been an active birder for over 30 years. I grew up with a mother who I thought was nuts when it came to birds. She doted on them, you know. I mean, she made her own suet. You remember when you could go to the supermarket and they would just give you the beef fat? Yeah. That's what she would do. She'd grind it up, mix it with peanut butter and seed. This is what I grew up with. She knew their common names, their scientific names. She knew their calls. She had a notebook. And I thought she was nuts. You do the same thing?
I have an electric bird. I have an electric bird bath for the winter.
There we go. I'm telling you. So when I bought my first house in '95, the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh, you got to put up a bird feeder." I had no interest at the time, but I knew if I didn't do it, she'd come up and do it for me. So I went out and I bought a cheap feeder, cheap seed, threw it on out there. So when she asked, yes, Mom, I did. I got a bird feeder out there. Yep. Well, here comes the next question. Well, what birds did you see today? I don't know, Mom. Sparrows. You know, and she's like, really? Up there in the woods? You know, and she starts rattling off this list of birds that she gets. And before I knew it, I got sucked into this competition. Because I was like, oh, I'm not going to let her beat me. So I started, you know, daughters, we want to rebel a little bit. We don't want to do what our mothers, you know, say. So I kind of watched what she was doing and kind of changed what I was doing and everything. And finally it's like, yes, Mom, I got this bird. Yes, Mom, I got that bird. So we had this friendly competition of who could get what birds into their yard. And so I learned over the years, it makes a difference what you put in your feeders. You know, and it makes a difference what kind of feeders you have out. So there's so much to choose from. So, and there's a lot of companies out there that think, you know, expect you to believe it's a seed, a bird will eat it. So they're gonna put whatever in a bag, put a pretty bird on the outside, and sell it to you. Ever see the birds kicking stuff out of the feeders? They're getting rid of what they don't want. And it comes down to the nutritional value of each individual ingredient. Birds need a high fat and protein diet. And a lot of the seeds that they're putting in these mixes are devoid of nutrition. So like take a cup of de-shelled sunflower. Has about 73 grams of fat in it. That red Milo, that little round red BB seed, 8 grams. That's why they're kicking it out. Because they're not going to benefit from it. So why put it in your feeders? If it's just going to kick, now you got a mess all over the ground. You got stuff sprouting. You got to get weed killer or whatnot, mow it down. And you can attract stuff to your yard that you don't want. You know, possums, raccoons, squirrels. Up here, maybe bear. Yeah, we'll get into that one. Trust me. So know what you're putting in your feeders. Black oil is the #1 preferred seed by the widest variety of birds. So you can't really go wrong with that. But be aware of even black oil. You want it to be fresh. You know, black oil is a commodity item, so prices are going up and down, up and down. Remember a few years ago during COVID when the war broke out in Ukraine, black oil sunflower skyrocketed in price? Ukraine's a huge producer of black oil sunflower. So they weren't able to export. So the people that were buying from Ukraine started buying from us. Supply and demand. You know, and there's a lot of these commodities brokers, they'll sit on rail cars full of black oil sunflower waiting for the market to go up and down. Yeah, I know. This commodities things is mind-boggling. So if black oil is this price, and you see something that's this price, buyer beware. I did that one time many, many years ago. I went to one of those mass market stores, Walmart, and they had black oil on sale. What a great price. I bought it. I brought it home, opened the bag, there was enough sticks in it to make a small fire. And it was dirty, and it was just, oh God, you know, it's just like, all right, let me just feed it, and I just won't buy it again. The birds wouldn't eat it. They're kicking it out, and I'm, you know, because I've become neurotic now, I said, wait a minute, you know, so I go out there and I'm picking up the seed off the ground, squeeze it, it's hollow. It's old. Buyer beware. You know, if the deal is too good to be true, there's a reason for it. You want fresh seed, you know, or else you're just wasting your money. Might as well just flush it. So if you're going to do straight black oil, make sure it's a good black oil. I prefer a mix because each individual ingredient has different nutritional value. So I want a wide variety of it. You know, so good black oil, I like peanuts, pumpkin seeds, and fruit. If you're gonna want to put fruit out there, make sure there's actually fruit in the mix. There's a company out there that has a fruit mix, but if you read the ingredient panel, it's a fruit flavor, which does nothing to attract the birds. So you're wasting, it smells good to us, but you're wasting your money. Also, I've seen companies put grit in their mix. Yeah, birds need to eat grit for digestion, but truthfully, they know where to go to eat dirt. Why put it in your feeders? I've seen vegetable oil. I've seen wheat, oats, barley. I've seen some weird stuff thrown into a bag. So read your ingredient panel. Know what you're buying. Because it makes a big difference when you're putting it in your feeders. Yeah. Little trivia question, just a little FYI. Out of 1 acre of black oil sunflower, how many 40-pound bags of sunflower do you get? Out of 1 acre?
3.
On average, you get about 40-pound bags.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
That much?
1,600 pounds is about an average, depending on the yield and the weather and the production. You know, sometimes it could be 1,100 pounds or 1,300 pounds. Some years it can be 1,800 pounds. So when you're seeing the price of black oil go up and down, it depends on the yield out of the fields. I tell you, when you see a snowstorm coming out because we get a lot of ours from local farmers in the Dakotas and stuff, when you see a big snowstorm coming and they haven't harvested yet, yeah, it's kind of scary. So things can change rapidly. All right. So feeders. How many people got multitudes of feeders out? Yes, I love that. Different sizes, different varieties. There's so many out there. You know, tube feeders, they're your standard. And these are great for the small birds. And if that's all you want to attract to the small birds, this works well. Because your big birds really can't get on it. But if you want a variety, I have a tube feeder, I've got a hopper feeder, and I've got a platform feeder. Platforms I take down when the starlings show up because they're, you know. But the more different varieties you put out there, the more variety of birds you're going to get. Because this can't accommodate a cardinal. This can. So different feeders bring different birds in. How many people wash their feeders? Yes! Loving it. Now, question is, do you use detergent on it? Do you use bleach? I use white vinegar.
That's what I use.
White vinegar. Because you should clean your feeders periodically. I know it's hard in the winter time, you know, because I use a big bucket outside.
Why not bleach?
Bleach, you know, kind of skeeves me a little bit. It's a chemical. And, you know, a lot of this is porous. And I worry about it not being rinsed completely. Whereas white vinegar is a natural antibacterial and it rinses clean and it's not harmful. You know, and a lot of feeders, when I'm looking at to buy a feeder, I look for two things. Is it easy to fill? Is it easy to clean? A lot of feeders now, companies are now making their feeders easier to clean because they recognize that it is important. So you see all those decorative feeders that look like little houses and stuff like that, try cleaning it. You know, and in the wintertime, do you really want to be trying to fuss and open it, or do you want to just go like this, fill, put it back up, and get inside? So yeah, is it easy to clean? Is it easy to fill? And then
How do you fill it with what? Vinegar and water, like together?
hot water and white vinegar.
Part vinegar, part.
I do, like I have a 5-gallon bucket that I use, and I put about 2 cups of white vinegar in there, and I let the feeders soak in there.
Okay, then.
Now, mind you, I have so many feeders at home that I'm never without a feeder up. You know, I've been in this industry a long time, so my birds are so used to me taking this feeder down and putting another one up. And I soak it for a couple of hours, and then I take the brush and brush it out and rinse it, and I hang it up to dry. And you should do that periodically. I've had a lot of people ask me about the bird flu and whether or not they should take their feeders down. At this time, no. No, I mean, if you had chickens, I would be a little concerned, but if you don't, there's been no real evidence of it, you know, wild birds infecting humans with bird flu. You know, just clean. Just clean it. After you fill your feeders, wash your hands. You know, even, you know, just filling them, I go in, I wash my hands. And just be aware of that. Keep your area clean. You should rake up underneath your feeders periodically. Now, I've had people ask me if they can compost the shells. Don't do it. Interesting little fact about sunflower. They have a natural growth inhibiting enzyme in them that they naturally exude to keep other plants from encroaching on them. That enzyme ends up in the shells. So if you take those shells and you compost them and then put them in your garden, you're putting that growth inhibiting enzyme in your garden so your flowers won't thrive. So just bag it up and throw it out. I had to look that up. I was doing the Poor Parent Gardening show a few years ago, and I had somebody call in and ask me that, and I'm just like, no, I'm gonna have to research that.
That actually would be great if you wanted to have an area where you wouldn't grow anything.
Right? But have you ever noticed how the grass underneath your feeders kind of dies off?
Yeah.
That's why.
But it was just the buildup of seed killing it.
Yeah, no, it's the sunflower. So just rake it up, bag it, throw it away. Now, something else to look for in a feeder, if you're doing a tube feeder, you want metal ports. Because what happens if a squirrel gets on this? Because he's not happy with just reaching in and grabbing a few pieces. He wants to chew the whole thing. So look for metal ports. Now, if you have, now this, I'm glad they actually have this. Goldfinches, how much do we love our goldfinches? A little interesting factoid, what do you call a group of goldfinches? You know how they have the murder of crows and stuff like that? What do you call a group of goldfinches? A charm. I know, I'm just full of these weird things. But goldfinches don't compete well with a lot of bigger birds. And you have your house finches and that are quite dominating. If you have a thistle tube out, This is called an upside down feeder. And if you notice, the port is underneath the perch. Goldfinches can hang upside down and feed.
That'd be cool to see.
The house finches can't. So if you want to set up a goldfinch feeding area, upside down feeder. I just learned these weird things, you know? And you know, house finches are not indigenous to the United States.
Really?
They were brought over and sold in pet shops. And eventually they were let go, fruitful, and multiplied. Just like the starlings. I was saying earlier, starlings were brought over with 20 different species of birds from Europe for a Shakespearean festival. When the festival was over, irresponsible people back then just let them go. They all died except the starling. Yeah. And they were fruitful and they multiplied. And they are a nuisance when they start moving. And then when they find your yard, they're like locusts. They will clean your yard up. I remember I was sitting home one time in the springtime, and I've got skylight, and I heard this. I look up, and there's all these birds looking down at me. So I stand up, and I look out in my front yard. The entire yard is black. I thought I was in the movie The Birds. Normally I'd go out and chase them, but I was just like, I think I'm really outnumbered at this one. Yeah, and they'll clean things up. Yeah, it is. And they're the hardest problem to deal with. Is how do you get rid of them? How do you discourage them? Well, you can discourage them with they don't like safflower, so you can change your feeders out to safflower. There is a company from Brome. Now this is their smaller one. I have their larger one. This is a weight activated feeder. And what I did is, I should have brought the other one in. The other one has a perch ring. I took that off, put the perches in real small. Then I put it on the lightest setting so that when a big bird lands on it, it kind of shuts the ports. Discourage them. That's all you can do. And if you notice, they come around to your yard basically the same time every day. They're on a paper route. So you can take your feeders down, wait for them to go through, and then put your feeders out. But it is a little bit of a game, you know, because they'll send a scout out. I've seen it. I'm not paranoid, I've really seen it. And they will go back and say, hey, she put her feeders up, and they'll come back. They are a smart bird. But you ever notice how they move in this?
Yes.
Do you know what it's called?
Murmuration.
Thank you. All right, you guys get ahead.
What is it?
A murmuration. They're the only ones that do that. You know, and it's to avoid predators.
Not the isn't it there's a other group that does that too, isn't it? I don't want to say sparrows. What are those little blackbirds? Swallows, yeah. Don't they do that too?
No, I don't think so. I've never seen them do it. I've never seen them in groups that big.
Okay.
Did you see them like that?
I thought so. Those are the other birds that did that. They're
never
little.
seen them.
They're a lot littler than the starling.
Yeah, they're. I love my barn swallows. I usually only see them in small groups.
But there's. I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, never mind.
Well, no. I don't want to interrupt, but I thought there was other birds that did that.
No, they're the only ones I know. I mean, there's others that go in flocks, but to go into that, the starlings have that down pat. And I mean, it's beautiful to watch.
It is.
It is.
But when you see them coming to your yard, it is kind of frightening. And they always come with the grackles, and the red-winged blackbirds. You know, red-winged blackbirds are actually your first sign of spring. Everybody thinks it's robins. Robins are year-round. Some will migrate, some will stay. But when the red-winged blackbirds show up, to me, it's the sign the seasons are starting to change. So I get excited when I see them.
there are different insects that remain as nymphs in the water. And the red-winged blackbirds wait until the ice has melted to be able to get at those nymphs and feed. So that's why you see them right after the ice has begun to melt.
Nice. That one I didn't know.
Is there any way to get them to the feeders? I've never seen a red wing.
Red wings? Yeah, they come to my feeders all the time. They'll eat the sunflower.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're usually on my feeders. What kind of feeder do you have? You have a tube feeder?
I have the thistle, I have a tube, and I have the platform.
See, they should go on the platform. Yeah. So, okay, so we've covered food, different types of feeders. How many you've got? Question?
Does the platform have to be a certain height?
No, not really. You could have it either on the ground. Some platforms have legs, so you can actually sit it right on the ground.
How could you do that with squirrels?
My hands.
Squirrels will try any height anywhere. That's just their nature.
The red-winged blackbird, we don't seem to have them in our yard. Are they in the area?
Yes.
Yeah, they are. They do like to be around like water or swampy areas.
We've seen that up in Maine. They got these, one of those things they'll stop. They have things on top and they blow up. Cat and nine-tail. That's where we've seen them up in Maine,
Okay.
but not here.
See, I have cattails by me. Oh, you're talking not cat and nine, they're just cattails. Yeah, I have cattails on the dam over by me is a nice swampy area. They do tend to go towards that area, so you should see them.
We saw a Baltimore Oriole once.
Nice. I get them nesting by me every year.
Really? Why don't you share it?
Share them? Do you put food out for them?
She does.
Okay, what kind of food do you put out for them?
I haven't put any out in a while, but I haven't seen any. Everybody else.
She's not sure what they use.
Welch's grape jelly.
Yeah.
And I got a story about that. I got one similar to this, and what it has pegs to put oranges on,
Yep.
and then it has jelly cups. Now, it's funny how you say Welch's grape jelly. Mine will only eat Welch's grape jelly. They're so spoiled, I'm telling you. Because not only does the Baltimore Oriole like grape jelly, but the catbird does. And I really like my catbird. So one year I had the catbirds on, the Orioles and stuff, and I was going through grape jelly like this. So I go to the supermarket and they see their store brand on sale. I bought it, they wouldn't touch it.
What is it about?
It has to be Welch's.
Others have artificial ingredients.
You know, you would think grape jelly is grape jelly. You know, you look at the ingredients, it's just like, nope, they want Welch's.
It's the sugar content.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, to me, it's grape jelly. Good golly. But yeah, Welch's grape jelly. But I get them, they come back every year. I hear them long before I see them. That's why the Merlin Bird app.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
Audubon's.
Yep, I love the Merlin app. We've actually worked with Cornell University on some of our kids programs and our teacher program. So we're involved with them. It's a great organization. But I downloaded their Merlin app years ago, and they have a feature on it where you can hit a listen button, and it'll listen to the birds in your area and identify them. Because you'll hear a new song and you're like, who is that? You know, and you hit that Merlin app. And you know, birds do change their song throughout the year. You know, they have their spring territorial mating songs, and then they have their regular songs. They change their songs a little bit throughout the year. But, yep, and it takes me a couple days, but I usually finally spot the Oriole. He likes to stay way up in the maples. And he usually comes when the maples start to flower, is when the Oriole starts showing up. And it's 48 more days till spring. But who's counting? But, so anyway, going back to water. Does everybody have a heated bird bath out?
Yep.
I do, we have two, we had two.
Yes, I've got one in the front yard, one in the backyard. They are my birdie jacuzzis. Let me tell you, because a lot of people are like, well, I live on a lake or I live on a stream. There's always water around. You want to offer your birds a safe spot to get a drink and to bathe. On the ground, there's a lot of predation. Aside from, cats are the number one, and I hate to say it, the cats are never truly domesticated. You could have the most well-fed cat, and cats are gonna do what cats do. I mean, my cat was an indoor cat, and he would still sit in the back window and do that cat chatter. Yeah, he's a big, brave cat. I've seen him launch at the window too, bam, hit his head like a beautiful thing. But, a lot of people, they just let the cats go. Feral cats, the number one throwaway pet. So that's one big problem. But there's another problem when you have big bodies of water or streams and stuff like that. And my mother discovered that many years ago. She dug her own pond. And she even had a little sub pond with a little stream running to it. And she had lily pads and goldfish and stuff like that. Well, she loved frogs. So she bought tadpoles. Every year she put tadpoles in there. She loved her frogs. Well, finally the frogs stayed. These big frogs started coming out of the pond, going to her feeders, and eating the birds.
Oh my God.
My mother raised killer bullfrogs.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and here's a little other weird tidbit is she would babysit my German Shepherds while I traveled. She trained them every morning to go out and herd the frogs back into the pond.
That's hysterical.
And you wonder why I'm strange? This is what I grew up with. Okay, Mom. She says, yeah, tell them, go get the froggies. And they go out and they flip the frogs with them. But she's caught them with birds in their mouths. And I actually saw it for myself last summer. I have a little sub pond in my garden. I live on a lake, but I have my feeders out front near some hostas, and I'm looking out my kitchen window and I see this orangey, yellowy blob underneath the feeders, and I thought some dog got in my yard and left a big dookie there. I got mad, so I go outside and I'm walking closer, and it's not dookie. It's a frog. It's a big bullfrog. And I was like, ooh, and I remember, so I kind of nudge him and he shoots underneath the hostas, and I'm just like, so I sat on my front porch and I watched. And sure enough, about 15 minutes later, the birds came back. This frog leapt out and tried to grab a bird. So it's not like they're just grabbing something that happens to move. They're actively hunting. So, and a small elevated bird bath is the best way to go, especially in the winter time when a lot of water sources are frozen over, because not all birds will eat seed. They all need water. So you can get birds into your yard that you won't see on your seed feeders. So it just increases your opportunity to see new birds. So every component you can put together just enhances your entire experience. So yeah, bird baths, important. Now cats, you want to put the feeders, like 8 to 10 feet away from any shrubbery that they can hide under. Now what my mother did, because she had a feral cat colony in her neighborhood, she bought that wire fencing for your garden, and she made a big ring around her feeders, so the cats didn't have a straightaway. So they have to come to the fence, jump over. It just gave the birds a little bit more time to get away. And that's why I like blue jays. Anybody like blue jays? Mm-hmm. Blue jays are the policemen of the bird world. They're one of the first ones to alert birds to danger. That's why everybody's, oh, they're bullies, they're this, they're that. But they actually help keep the other birds safe. But they're also a little too smart for their own good. Because I've seen my feeders be all, busy and stuff, and they've let out an alarm call, the birds scatter, they come right on in and have I've seen them do it. Do you know what bird family blue jays are a member of? Crows. That's why they're so smart. And I feed them peanuts in the shell. And so when they see me come out, I shake my little peanut jar, and I hear them calling to each other. And I throw peanuts to them.
Do you have any birds lying in your hand?
Not yet. I've had them come to my feet, the titmouse. He'll come right to my feet, and I'll throw a peanut down to him.
Chickadees will come into your hand.
Into your hand. They're one of the friends. They land on the feeder as I'm filling it.
Yeah.
They have no fear of me. As you're out in your garden and the birds get to know you, and they recognize you as not a threat. So you can make friends with them, And yes, I do talk to them.
I saw a cool thing on Facebook just the other day that you can get them up close. They had someone wearing sunglasses, and they fashioned a paper plate somehow on the sunglasses. They put a hat on, they put a thing around themselves and just sat in a corner on the deck, and the birds will come right to the plate right in front of your eyes.
Really?
Yeah,
I have not seen that one.
I know, I was like, wow, that's cool, I gotta try that.
Send us pictures when you do.
I can't, I'll be under all that stuff.
Well, have somebody take a picture.
I'll scare the birds.
That'd be a lot of fun.
It would be.
Chickadees will land in your hand.
Yeah.
You can hand feed them.
Yeah.
If you choose to.
Yeah. I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm not home enough. But during COVID, when I was stuck at home, I got the titmice to come right to my feet, and I can drop peanuts to them. But they do get to recognize you.
My mother used to ring a bell, and then she'd go out and she'd ring a bell, and then she'd put her feet in the feeders, and as she was doing, all the birds were coming from all over. They got to learn. So when I go out, you know how you have the metal tins to put the bird seed in to store it? I take the metal tin and I just give it a little tap, and it makes a big echo, and the birds all come as I'm feeding.
That's so
them.
cool.
They know.
Oh, I love
They're,
it.
they're amazing, because you get the same ones over and over again.
They learn.
Yeah.
They learn, and they come back every year. The migratory birds come back every year to the same yard and everything, and they get to know you. And that's what's nice when you can be able to connect with nature like that.
Yeah.
We live in such a built-up world that it's so nice to be able to shed that and connect with nature again. And that's what I love about birding. It's just being out there and listening to them, and just that calm comes over you. You start your day in the morning with your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, and you just go out and you listen and you talk to them. Okay, I've gone off the deep end. All right. Let's talk about my favorite subject. Sammy the squirrel. How many people love Sammy the squirrel? Okay, I see a few hands there. What's the largest species of squirrel in North America? Who said fox?
I said black.
Oh, black squirrel. It's the fox squirrel. Fox squirrel is the largest squirrel. They can get up to be 2.2 pounds. It's a big squirrel. They are beautiful. They are somewhat solitary, so I don't know if you see them around here. But yeah, squirrels, everybody wants to know, how do you get rid of the squirrels? You don't. You manage them. Coyotes, there you go. Got coyotes for rent, right? So I'm gonna put it actually out there. There's no such thing as a squirrel proof feeder. I call them squirrel slower downers. Some work better than others. And I've tried quite a few of them. Now I've got this one at home. This is from Joe Yankee. They make 4 of them. They make the Whipper, Dipper, Tipper, Flipper. Been in this industry a long time. Now 3 of them are mechanical. 1 of them is battery operated. The Flipper is the one that's battery operated, and when the squirrel hits the perch ring, it flings them. Very entertaining. I bought one for my mother. It was amusing. And they actually learned not to bother that feeder anymore. Now I have the dipper, and that's mechanical. That is weight activated, so the perch collapsed. So the body of the feeder itself is just a bit longer than the body of the squirrel. So the squirrel will try and reach down, and he can't quite reach, so he thinks he's going to drop and grab that perch ring. Hits it, drops him. So I have not had a squirrel on this one. They try, they don't succeed. Then they make other ones that are in hopper shape. Again, weight activated. They do have ones with cages. This one is just basically for the small birds. So you're not going to get your cardinals or anything like that on that. You can use baffles. Now, setting up a baffle correctly is important, because I've seen people put a baffle on a shepherd's hook with the feeder and wonder why the squirrel still gets on. It's like the baffle's not going to reach down and smack the squirrel. You know, you got to set it up correctly. So if you have a post-mounted feeder, you're going to want to put that post 8 to 10 feet away from anything they can get up on and launch themselves or drop down from. And the baffle should be at least 5 feet off the ground. Adjust it depending on how acrobatic your squirrel is, but at least 5 feet. Now if you're hanging a feeder, same thing. You're going to want that feeder to be at least 5 feet off the ground, 8 to 10 feet away from anything they can get on. And they can be very effective. Now you can use, all right, here's the salesman in me coming out. Capsaicin. We make a capsaicin-infused seed. Ever eat a buffalo wing and your mouth is on fire? That's what happens to the squirrel. Trust me, it's hot. I had somebody taste this. I was very entertained. Gotta have fun in this industry.
What happens with the birds when you put that in?
Nothing. What activates that burning sensation is saliva. And if you take it a step further, within the salivary glands of all mammals is a protein. And that protein has a chemical reaction with the capsaicin, causing that burning sensation. And your brain really doesn't know how to interpret it, because it's actually a pain, but your brain doesn't know how to interpret it, so it interprets it as a pain. So squirrels have saliva, birds do not. So it doesn't, the birds may get a flavor, but they're not going to get that burning sensation. And I actually watched a documentary on symbiotic relationships and how plants and stuff develop. Peppers develop to be distasteful to mammals for the purpose of propagation. Because if a mammal eats the pepper seeds and stuff, they deposit them in a small area. Whereas birds, when they eat them, they take them and they fly miles. So it spreads them out. I was like, how did plants figure that out? That was a fascinating documentary. But yeah, it can be very effective.
So how much do you put in your bird feeder?
This is already infused.
I know, but so how, you mix it in with your regular seed?
I wouldn't mix it in.
Oh, okay.
Because you want to teach the squirrels. Yeah, you want to teach them, don't use that feeder. And then after they've learned that, if you want to kind of mix it and spread it out, that's fine. They do sell powder that you can put on your seed. I do advise being careful doing that. I've done it. Yeah, you get a gust of wind and it's in your face and you're suffering. Because it is hot. Now what I used to do is I opened up a piece of newspaper, I spread the seed out, and I took an unflavored cooking spray and just did a quick light mist, then put the powder on so that the powder would stick to the seed. Then when we came out with this, I was like, good, I don't have to do that anymore. Because it is a biohazardous material. You have to be careful. You know, if it's on your hands, you touch your face, yeah, you're gonna suffer. So it's use caution with those kind of mixes, or if you're mixing it yourself. But they can be quite effective. I tried it on my Sammy the squirrel at home, and I had a platform feeder on the ground, filled it up, went inside, sat in the kitchen window with my cup of tea, and I waited. And here he comes. I've nicknamed him Stumpy because he has half a tail. He came along, he thought he hit the jackpot. Boy, he was surprised. He went up there, he grabbed a few pieces and he's eating, and it's like, also, it was like a cartoon. His eyes got big and he's like, oh. Oh. And then he just started rubbing his face and paw in the ground. And then he sat there real still. For the longest time, I thought I killed him. So I was just about to go out there and nudge him because I didn't want to kill Stumpy, you know. And all of a sudden he shook his head, he's like, yeah, I'm good. So it can work. Some people use straight safflower because they think squirrels will not eat it. They will. If there's nothing else around to eat, they will begrudgingly eat it. It is a very bitter seed, which is why they don't like it. But if you're, no, I mean, face it, if you're hungry and you have nothing to eat but your shoe, you're gonna eat your shoe. So if they have something else to eat, they'll go off and they'll leave the safflower alone. But if they're starving, they'll eat the safflower. They'll even eat Niger seed, and that's not even on their list of favorite things either. But if they're starving, they'll eat it. Now you can, if you squirrel-proof your area as best as possible, you can just feed them. Set up a separate squirrel feeding station away from your main feeders, and you put out, you know, corn with maybe a little sunflower and a few peanuts in there, and you set off away from your main feeders, because squirrels are smart, but they're kind of lazy. So if they had the choice of fighting that feeder, trying to get on there, or hopping up for an easy meal, they're going for the easy meal, hands down. So you can have harmony in the yard. Or you can rent some coyotes and have them take care of that. But, okay. All right, so we covered food, feeders, water, squirrels. How excited are we for the spring when hummingbirds come? There are migration maps that you can find online where people post their sightings, because everyone wants to know when should they put a feeder out. I've had people say, oh, I put it out in June or July. Oh dear God, way too late. Rule of thumb is by tax day or when you see the forsythias start to bloom. You should at least have one of your feeders out. And the birds will come back to the same yard they were in last year. Because I remember once I hadn't put my feeders out. I was neglectful, yes. And I'm looking out my kitchen window and there the hummingbird went to the same shepherd's hook that I always hang my feeder on. Needless to say, I was in a state of panic. Because if they don't find food, they keep going. Yeah, and that's why you want to catch them when they're moving through. That's why I start checking those migration maps and, you know, seeing where they are, because depending on the weather will determine whether they come to your yard sooner or a little bit later. And usually mine is the week of the April 20th. I usually see one. Can't wait for that. Yes. So there's so many different feeders out there. I do like glass. That's my preference. But years ago, somebody had told me, because the next problem is bees on the feeders. How do you get rid of the bees? So somebody had told me to try a feeder with white flowers. Remember, bees are attracted to yellow. This is why they say if you're gardening in your yard, don't wear yellow. Bees are attracted to yellow. So I got a feeder with white flowers, and I saw less bee activity on it. I thought maybe it was a fluke, so I tried it again the second year. Again, less bee activity. Is it a cure-all? No, but there's less bee activity. Then they also have ones that they have bee guards on, and then the saucer-like hummingbird feeders, don't fill them all the way up. Hummingbirds have a long tongue, so only fill them like halfway, so that the hummingbirds can still reach it, but the bees can't. But there's just no way to get around. Bees are going to be bees.
And the ants
ants. Ants are the next biggest problem with feeders. When ants get into your feeders and they die, they release fomic acid, and it turns the feeder toxic. So you want to keep them off your feeders. So a lot of companies are putting in ant moats. You keep them filled with water, and it creates a barrier so the ants can't get on there. You can also buy the ant moat separately if you have a feeder that doesn't have one automatically on it. And like I said, creates a, that's what I use. I have those ant wells at home. And believe it or not, the birds drink out of it.
I put Vaseline on the hook, because I have a hook one that goes on a shepherd's hook, and Vaseline on the
Yeah, you could create a barrier. You have to keep applying it because it washes away.
Well, you gotta clean it all the time anyway, so.
What do you put, you put
Vaseline?
Vaseline on what?
On the shepherd's hook.
Well, because I have the one with the hook coming down, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a saucer looking.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I put it around the,
Now, you don't find with the heat of the summer, the Vaseline drips down on the feeder? Okay. Because they also do sell ant gel that you can put on like your shepherd's hook post to keep them from coming up.
they used to sell those green things. They were green and had a hook on them that you hooked on the shepherd hook,
Mhm.
and
And
then
that,
hooked it
yeah,
on.
that ant guard, it's called
Yeah.
ant guard, and it has an insecticidal disc on that.
They still have that here.
I think so, yeah. But
I
the
get it every
ant,
year.
there are solutions to it.
I take duct tape and I wrap it, the long stem of my shepherd's hooks. I take duct tape and I wrap it around with the sticky part out. I've never had an ant problem.
Nice.
That's a good
Nice.
idea.
Do you worry about the birds accidentally running into it and getting stuck?
They don't, because ordinarily they don't land on
Mm-hmm,
the stem of the shepherd's hook.
okay.
They usually fly right up to the top.
So there are solutions to the ants. Now, everybody wants to know how often to clean the feeder. Now, I use hot water and white vinegar. I don't use bleach. I don't use any type of dish soap or anything like that. And I clean it every time I change the feeder. Now, how often will be determined if the temperature and whether or not the feeder is in the sun. In the beginning of the season, when it's still cool out, you can get about a week. But as the temperature goes up, the days go down. So in the heat of the summer, when it's like 95 degrees, you're gonna be wanting to change it almost every day. Because if it's in the sun, and the sun hits this, and it cooks the sugar water, it turns it into a type of alcohol. And you don't want drunk hummingbirds flying around your yard.
How much vinegar to water in a feeder like that?
I use, well, what's that
Still
one?
got that big bowl, that
No, I don't use the big bowl. I have a smaller one that goes in my sink, and that holds about, I put about 2 gallons of water in there, and maybe about half a cup of white vinegar in there.
not a lot of vinegar really.
No, not a lot. And then I have special brushes that I only use for my hummingbird feeders. I even have the little ones that do the
Yeah.
ports and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And if you do a quick clean every time you change the nectar, they're easy to clean.
Yeah.
You just stay on top, because you don't want black mold growing on it. Black mold is toxic.
Right.
You know, hummingbirds are just amazing. Ever wonder, because they have to eat constantly, ever wonder how they survive the night?
They drop their temperature, their body
Torpor.
temperature.
They go into a state of torpor, and that's a state of hibernation. Because if they don't, they'll starve by morning.
Wow.
Do you know how many times they flap their wings per second?
Hundredths, I think,
On average, 70 times per second.
per second.
They are, per second, they are an amazing little bird. And how they migrate, no, they do not migrate on the back of geese. I've seen that as an old wives' tale. That they migrate to South America on the back of geese, and that just doesn't happen. But they are an amazing bird. And they recognize you. I mean, they come right up to me.
Yeah.
You know? Their attitude, what? Because I garden for them as well. You know, so I've got all different types of salvias, buddleias, bee balm, you know, impatiens, I garden for them. Yeah, and that's another component that you can add to your list of attracting birds, is garden for them. There are a lot of bird-friendly plants out there. I have an echinacea garden just for my goldfinches. And hyssop, they do like hyssop too. You know, and when they go to seed, they like to pull the seeds, and it's so cool the way they you know, they're swinging back and forth on the stem, pulling it apart. Now last year, you guys had a drought too last year, right? All my flowers went to seed early, and the seed production was down. So if you're seeing more activity at your feeders, it's because natural food production is down. So I always encourage people to keep their feeders full for that reason. And now going into the spring when the migratory birds come back, there's going to be no food for them. So keep the feeders full. Now another issue. How many have a bear issue? Ah, yeah, I love them bears. Yeah, believe it or not, even though I live in Jersey, I live in Bear Central in Jersey. We have on average, they average 2.5 bears per square mile.
Wow.
They are everywhere. I've had them up to my front door, looking in my kitchen window. Yeah, bears are a huge issue. Now what I utilize ropes and pulleys. So all my feeders are suspended 10 feet off the ground, 10 feet away from the side of the tree. And I've been doing, the last time bears got my feeder was about almost 20 years ago. I went out to the store for 1 hour. I come back, 8 feeders decimated. And they broke branches and this, it's just like, holy crap. At first I didn't know what happened until the following day when I saw him coming back to my yard. This is a good about 500-pounder. We grow them big in Jersey. They're well fed. I mean, they did, I don't know how you feel about it, we did have a hunting season last year, and a fellow took one out of the woods field dressed at 700 pounds. Wow. So we grow them big. So they are a problem. You can, and that's why you should keep the ground underneath your feeders clean, you know, keep your feeders suspended. I mean, some people say, well, I take them in at night. Bears are out during the day. You never know when they're going to come to your yard. And once they find your yard once, they're coming back. They remember. Now I have, here's my weirdness coming out again. I have infrared sensors in my yard. So I know when they enter my yard. So I have a paintball gun. I shoot them with the paintball gun. I want them to be afraid of me. And that's the problem, is they're not afraid of people. I mean, I was, because I have off-road parking in my house down here, and I was in the back of I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I'm in the back organizing it. What do you think I have in the back of my vehicle?
Birdseed.
And all of a sudden, you know, I'm there, and all of a sudden I had this weird feeling I was being watched. And they always tell women, listen to their intuition. You know, I thought it was creepy old man Jack across the street. But I turn around and 30 feet behind me is a bear. Oh my gosh. Coming right for me. For a big animal, they don't make any noise when they walk. So I keep a brass whistle on my keychain. So I take that out, I start blowing, and I start just jumping up and down and losing my mind basically on him. And he was like, whoa, she's crazy, and ran off. But if I hadn't turned around, he would have mugged me. And we've had that happen. Woman going out to her car with her lunch, the bear knocked her down, grabbed her lunch bag.
Aren't you afraid of breaking in your car with the seed in it?
I've had them on top of my car.
Never gotten in?
They've never gotten in. You know, we did, was it 6 years ago now, we did have a fatality. You know, so I take them very seriously. So if you have a bear issue, elevate your feeders. You know, like I said, ropes and pulleys, so that you can pull them up, get them out of reach. And I use, the branches I use are not big enough to really hold a big bear, but they're strong enough to hold a feeder. So get them out of their reach. Keep the area underneath clean, so they have nothing to lick up or anything like that. And I probably don't recommend you doing the paintball thing because I'm crazy and you're not. But yeah, be aware of them, take a stance against them, scare them if you can. You know, you want them to be afraid of you. And that's important. All right, so we've talked about bears, okay?
I was just gonna say, I have a woodpecker that comes to my hummingbird feeder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It looks like a baby one, but,
it's probably a
Okay.
downy,
okay,
because I had a downy just obsessed with my hummingbird feeders
Yeah.
last year.
yeah.
It's just like I'm using half the nectar on the downy, and it's just like, it's a good thing I love my downies,
Yeah.
you know, but, yeah. I try and put stuff out for them, but they want that hummingbird nectar. I've had the catbird on it. I had a squirrel chew my one hummingbird feeder. It's like, really, dude?
How about pigeons?
Pigeons?
We don't have them in our yard.
But they're there, the neighbor has a ton of pigeons, but he stays away from my yard.
They like, pigeons like, they like the red Milo, they like the corn, the cheap stuff. They're not really tube feeders, but if you had a big platform out, they would probably land on that. I don't know if you want to encourage.
No.
Yeah, because they can be quite domineering and chase all the other birds away. Now, are they just wild pigeons, or does he have racing pigeons?
No, just regular pigeons.
Just regular pigeons.
He just throws seed out
Oh, on the ground?
on the ground and
Yeah.
on the platform.
Yeah, that's kind of, because they're a sizable bird, so they'll either eat on the ground or on the platform. But, so I don't recommend doing that if you want to keep them out of your yard.
We do get morning doves
Yeah,
though.
Morning, you know what, they're such a pretty little bird.
they are.
But they are kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I walk in my garden, and I've almost stepped on them.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but usually they're one of the first ones the hawks get.
He got one the other day.
Yeah. There's nothing to do, there's nothing you can do about hawks. You feel bad because you feel like you're setting up a dinner table for them by feeding the birds. But truthfully, hawks, they're not always successful in their hunting, and they're gonna get a bird whether it's at your feeder or out in the wild. Hawks are a sign of a good, healthy ecosystem. I have the Coopers, I've got the sharp shin, and I've got the red shoulders around my area. And across the lake, I have the bald eagles nesting. But
Yeah, we're
they
having
don't,
those.
they don't go after birds, so. But I watched the sharp shin come down, try and get a sparrow, and I'll tell you, they look funny when they're on the ground walking. And this hawk was going in and out of the shrubs and stuff like that, trying to get that bird. And I watched him for half an hour. He never got a bird. So they're not as successful as you think they are. So yeah, it's sad when you come home and you see that pile of feathers, but it's natural. It's nature, It's you have a good ecosystem, and they are a stunning bird. But yeah, I've come home to piles of feathers before, and it's just sad. But
But she saw a hawk.
He grabbed a mourning dove and I ran out to try to help. He took the bird with him.
yeah, usually once they hit that bird is
Suffers damage.
he's damaged enough. You might as well just let him finish the kill.
Ah.
I know it's hard to do, we want to, it's our nature, we want to save them.
Yeah, there was something I could do.
It's just, why can't they go after the starlings? Right? Say, no morning doves, you can have all the starlings you want. So,
There's a gang up on them.
okay, I think we've covered everything. Do we have other questions? Did I not cover something?
Suet in the morning.
I used to have large flocks of goldfinches,
Okay,
and now if I have one or two in a week, that's a joy. And I'm wondering if the conjunctivitis is still an issue.
I've never seen conjunctivitis in goldfinches. I have seen it in the house finches.
Okay.
Now, at this time of the year,
I'll
I'll
just figure the Niger seed feeders are the ones that I try to keep cleanest.
right. Now, here's something interesting that we have noticed, is that a lot of goldfinches are now starting to lean towards sunflower chips.
Okay.
So Niger is important. It comes from Ethiopia or India. And when it comes into the United States, it's heat sterilized. Well, from what I understand, they had changed their sterilization process. So we actually did an experiment trying to figure out if that's the reason. So we had some old batch Niger and this new batch Niger. So we put them into some finch socks and we did an experiment to see if the finches would go more to one or the other, and it turned out to be inconclusive. So I've noticed it at my feeders. I use something called Special Finch, which is Niger and sunflower chips mixed together, and I've got goldfinches all over it. Now, don't forget, at this time of the year, some of the goldfinches have migrated, and they will come back in the spring. I usually have about 50 of them in my yard during the spring. I love them, the little wee wee wee.
I have a ton of them in my yard all through the winter.
Do you?
Yeah,
Nice, I love that. I usually keep about a dozen in the winter,
yeah.
but then they come back in the spring. Now, we had something, there is a phenomenon called a finch eruption, and that happened in the fall, winter to the beginning of the spring of 2019, 2020. And it coincides with the feast and famine cycle of conifers up in Canada. When it's in a famine cycle, it pushes a lot of your finch-type birds, especially pine siskins. Oh my God, I had them coming out of my ears. I had 2 3-foot thistle tubes outside, another thistle tube, and an assortment of socks. I was filling them almost every day. The pigs were eating me out of house and home. And it's a real phenomenon called finch eruption. So if you start seeing this huge flock of pine siskins, it's probably we're in an eruption year. Your phenomenon. So I worried about, with all the fires up in Canada. So I talked with a lot of my accounts up in Vermont and New Hampshire, and they said they started seeing more pine siskins, crossbills, and stuff like that coming down. But they haven't come all the way down our way.
What do they look like?
The pine siskins, a lot of people mistake them for goldfinches who haven't changed color. They're kind of like brown sparrowy, but they have yellow bars on their wings and a little blush here. They're a pretty bird.
They're a little smaller.
They're a little smaller. Yeah. But they come in mass when they do.
Mine look a little greenish, my finches right now.
Yeah, those are the goldfinches. The females stay that kind of greenish color, and then the males change in the spring to bright yellow.
There's so many different kinds of foods and mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend staying with one food in one feeder or kind of mixing it up?
I mix it up. It's what you want to avoid is what's important. You want to avoid red Milo. You want to avoid cracked corn, wheat, oat, barley. I'm not even a big fan of white millet, because that usually gets kicked to the ground anyway. So if you avoid those, it is a good mix. And I mix it up. I have feeders that are heavier in nut meats, heavier in sunflower and fruit and stuff. I'm fortunate. I work for the company.
Can they give you stuff to try?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's one of the perks of the company. Yeah.
I have a question about, you didn't go over worms and
Worms!
suet? I get bluebirds at my platform feeder adding the worms.
Now, suet. Now, a lot of people, we have suet, because squirrels will eat suet. They will not eat pure suet. So if you get the white cake with nothing added to it, squirrels won't eat it. If they're eating your suet, it's probably because they're going after the nuts and stuff that are mixed in the suet. They also make a capsaicin-infused suet. So hot stuff. Now the problem is, when the starlings start moving, starlings love suet. This is basically an upside down suet feeder. So they have to hang upside down and eat.
That's really cute.
Starlings can't do it. So you can kind of save your suet and let the woodpeckers and stuff get on it. So there are ways around it. Now, you can make your own suet. It's just beef fat. Now, like I said, my mother used to grind it up and make her own. Or you can just take the wad of suet and put it in a cage and hang it out there. Just keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't go rancid. A lot of the suet they're making nowadays is rendered beef fat and it's stable so it doesn't go rancid. So it is safer to use.
How do you know if it goes rancid?
It's green.
It smells.
It smells.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, bugs are all over it. Well, maybe the birds will go after the bugs, you know. Then it's time to go. But now they don't give it to you for free anymore. You gotta pay for it. So now bluebirds. Anybody got bluebirds? Yes. I had blueberries stay around my house for 2 weeks last year. I was very excited. Usually I only see them for a day or two and they move on. They like the pokeberry bush. And my neighbor's got a wild one growing in his yard. So they like to go after that. You can feed them mealworms. Now you can put out live ones to start because the movement of the mealworms will get their attention and then trade them over to dried.
Where do you get live ones?
You don't have live mealworms here, do you?
No.
No. Pet stores. Because mealworms, they sell mealworms for lizards and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you can get them at pet stores. And then you can move them over to something a little easier. Now, bluebirds will eat, they don't eat seed, but they will eat de-shelled sunflower. Their beaks really aren't designed for cracking the shells, but if it's already out of the shell, they'll eat it. So we have a mix that's really good for bluebirds. Here, that's the salesman and me coming out again. So this has got fruit, insects, and de-shelled sunflower in it.
They have nuggets here that are bluebird nuggets,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll eat my whole nugget container in a couple days. The
Yeah.
bluebirds, they love it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I could keep
My
bluebirds.
neighbor has 3 bluebird nests,
Mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
they fly from the nest to my feeders, and then they go back to the nest.
Now they're using the boxes, correct? Using the bluebird boxes?
That's what she has, yeah.
Yeah, because they have to be a specific size box with a specific size opening. They have to be on a post 5 feet off the ground. The entrance needs to be facing east to southeast. They're very picky. Now the problem is sparrows, house sparrows. House sparrows are another non-indigenous species of bird. House sparrows like to make their nest in bluebird boxes. Friends of mine in upstate New York had that problem, and I bought them something called a predator guard, and it's basically like a 3-inch tube that goes over the entrance. Bluebirds are crevice dwelling, so they have no problem going through. House sparrows are more hesitant to do so, and they said it made a big difference. Because house sparrows are nasty little birds. They will actually, if a bluebird is in on her nest in a box, they will peck her to death and build a nest on top of her. They are not a nice little bird. And you know, sometimes I have a box that my house wren likes to use, and they'll get in there, and they'll.
We do have mealworms. I apologize.
You do have mealworms?
I
Okay.
thought it was only hornworms, but we do have mealworms as well.
And they'll get in the box, and I usually wait until she lays a couple eggs. I do destroy the nest. And don't feel bad, because like I said, they're not indigenous. They have had a negative effect on the bluebird population. So exercise what control we can. You know, you hate to do it, but I prefer my little house wren.
I have a sparrow and house wren that fight every spring over the same box,
Mhm.
and usually the wren wins.
Yeah, wren is tenacious.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I love them. You know, for such a little bird to have such a big voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear them from yards away. I love them. So, yes, I do have a little mesh feeder that I do put them out because the wrens like it, the titmice like it, you know, the catbird when he comes back, they like the mealworms and stuff. So I like to feed everybody.
I wanted to ask you about the block feeder.
Mhm.
I'm lazy, so I like buying the cake,
Okay,
you know. Is there any advantages or disadvantages of doing that?
no. But, I mean, it's just another way of offering food.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I like to do. I like to have different ways of offering food because you
Yeah.
bring in the variety of birds.
Yeah, okay.
So, block away.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Did I cover everything? Did I miss anything?
I put white millet on the ground.
Mhm.
I
Because that's
never-
where it's gonna end up anyway.
I never put it in my feeders.
Yeah.
I get a lot of the ground feeder birds. They like the white millet.
Cardinals like those,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, what?
the millet.
They'll pick at what's on the ground. You know, I'm not saying nothing will eat it. It's not what they're looking for. If they had a choice between sunflower and millet, they're going for the sunflower. But if there's nothing else around, they'll eat it. It's just, you know, I'd rather put something they really want and they're gonna be nutritious for them. You give them the energy they need. Now going back to how, everybody got birdhouses? Did you clean them out?
Not
What
yet.
kind of material do you put out for the birds to use? Do you put anything out?
You know, dog hair.
Dryer lint, leftover yarn, thread.
No dryer lint. Don't use dryer lint. Dryer lint has chemicals in it from your clothing. You can put out different straws, plain natural yarn, dog hair.
I used to be a groomer.
Dog hair is fabulous. Now I had two German shepherds.
Shedders.
They are shedders.
What do you think they do best? Yeah, I tell you, when I brush them, it looked like a dog exploded in my yard. But I would gather it up and put it in a suet cage and hang it up for them. I mean, my mother and I used to battle over who's gonna brush the dogs. I swear to God, I thought I'd come pick them up one time and my dogs would be bald. But dog hair, it's warm. If it gets wet, it dries quickly. It is a great nesting material. So if you have a dog and you brush them,
Oh, yeah.
put the hair out for them. The birds will take it.
And put them in a suet holder?
I use an old suet cage to keep it up elevated so it's not mushy on the
Yeah.
ground and stuff like, just to make it a little easier. You can put some dried grass in there and stuff like that. So, yeah, I love it when I start watching them pull material and start making their
You
nests.
keep that separate or a certain amount away from the food? Or,
I do.
Yeah.
I have a viburnum that I like to hang it in. I hang it in the same spot every year. So I guess, the birds know to look for it there. They remember. So let's get our nesting boxes ready, and spring is 48 days away. Not that we're counting.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Did I cover everything?
Great, thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Because sometimes I yammer on and kind of get lost.
Outstanding.
Don't empty your birdhouses too early because you may have birds roosting in them, as long as it's cold, as long as it's frosty.
I don't normally roost in the boxes. Yeah.
I do.
Do you really? Now, they do make roosting boxes.
I thought the birds naturally cleaned out the box, because I see them pulling stuff out.
Well, here's the funny thing, like with the wrens, the male wren is one of the hardest working birds out there. He will make like 3 or 4 different nests, and he brings his female around to them to see which one she likes best. And if she starts ripping that nest apart, he's got to start over. Oh, I watched. I felt so sorry for that poor little bird. He's there on the branch going, like, do you like it, honey? And all of a sudden she just starts ripping it apart, and I'm just like, oh, he's got to start all over again.
Wow.
Yep.
Birdzilla.
Yeah, she's a bridezilla. Exactly. It's got to be just right. So any other questions? No?
I'm making a packet for my neighbor.
Well, I hope I answered everything.
Great, thank you.
And I thank everybody for coming. Take it out, take it out. And happy birding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did want to show you this little video.
Oh, I like that.
My brother-in-law has many of these at his house, and they're,
I get, have birds every year under my deck.
it's a barbecue
I love
grill
birds. I get
that is
We've never had a
mounted
bear
on
in
top
our
of
yard.
and he fills them with sticks, and they're massive amounts of hummingbirds and other birds that they hang stuff from. So, are they looking for
I usually, the
protection?
kids have told me I always go down to get my
They like
paper in the morning with my
offer
cell
them a lot
phone
of
because
places where they can perch.
you know,
That's
it's
Yeah.
a
number
brand
one.
new phone.
Number two, don't
I
forget,
always have to, one day I went down, like,
So if there's
quarter to
insects
7,
flying and
I'm
trying to
walking
hide
up
in
my
there, they're
driveway
going
to
after
get
the
to my
gnats.
breeze site,
That's
and there I looked
awesome.
and I went,
I love that.
So I'm making one of
It was
those
like,
this
it
year,
wasn't a
and
little,
then
it was
he
a
has
big
like
bear.
a sewage
You know,
thing
the-
hanging,
Uh-huh.
like there's other
wooden-
food hanging, and
my
it
big
just
wooden
seems to
feeder
be a
that
nice
Tom made 30
haven.
years
And it's
ago.
got
Pieces.
coverage.
Yeah. And,
Oh,
you know, he
so
cleans up,
over
he cleans up the
and
yard
so-
and he finds a stick and he just
whatever.
shoves it in there and it
And then
becomes this
about
huge
a
thing.
week after that,
Yeah,
it
it's pretty
took
cool.
down one of
So I
those
didn't know if,
posts
like,
that had, you
I
know,
hadn't seen them anywhere except
I
his
haven't seen
house
it since,
before.
and I haven't seen any
So,
of it since, but
And just
it
side
was
note,
my
have
way
you heard of
through the
or ever
neighborhood
played
right
the
over
game
to
Wings Fairy?
No.
Oh, it's all about
I
birds.
can tell like when
Fabulous
it's gonna
game.
storm, my bird is very tough.
Thank
I
you
have
so
to
much.
Thank you for
I have a
coming.
quick question for you. We talked briefly
Nugget.
about the avian, the bird flu.
Holder.
We don't take down the feeders. I think.
It sits on
How
the
do you
metal
feel, or
post.
what's the deal now with like you have domestic birds in your home and you have
And
a
if
lot of
I
feeders
don't
around?
hear it,
Similar to
treat
here,
the
they got a
dog
lot of
late,
bird feeders
we'll go to the
outside,
door and
but they
he'll
got
bark.
birds in here for
and
sale.
I'm like, what are you hearing?
What's the deal with that?
I have parrots.
I do too, that's exactly right.
I haven't even
I
got
have
the thing back on
a
it.
cockatoo that's like 30 years old. I have a pionis, Maximelis pionis, and I got a little parakeet. She came to our house on her own. She flew, so I've had birds all my life. So we've got probably, I don't know, we must have at least 8 different feeders inside, plus suet, plus we do the corn cobs for the squirrels. So you name it, we have it. But my husband actually's been using plastic, the rubber gloves, the nitrile gloves when he goes out and changes the bird feeders or adds to it, and then he
My daughter
throws those away.
always
And the
bought
shoes
all
that he
of our
wears
plants
are only
at
for
the
outside.
nursery
He
and
doesn't
everything.
come to the house
But
with
they
them.
have giant
So we're
lilies
really
every year.
concerned about,
They
you
grow
know,
like this tall.
because you hear like a little bit of bits
And
and
she always
pieces of
finds
it,
a
it's
black
like,
one, and we
is it
split
really
it.
a better idea just to take them out and just,
You're doing the right thing.
you know?
Because I have a
And
Congo
I
African
found
gray.
that the
He's 37.
mixture of
Okay,
seed
so
And
you're.
my macaw is 40.
tractor supply, I think
So I've had him a
that's
long
changed
time.
Yeah.
I
I've had
wash
birds all my
hands.
life, yeah.
And I mean, I wear Crocs when I go
Yep,
outside, and
he's
I
got
take them off when I come.
LNLB rubber boots. Oh, if he doesn't.
You're already doing everything correctly.
Okay.
You don't wash your hands.
Yeah.
You know, you're not hugging the feeders and
Oh,
stuff.
I
no.
can find
You
a
know,
mixture
you
and
just,
then adding stuff to it.
if they're outside,
Yeah.
these are inside.
Yeah.
You should be
Things like
told.
it's
Because we were
that,
almost
with the
wondering once,
millet
because
in
he
it.
just
Like, not
just
last
filled
year,
them,
year
so we
before.
were almost wondering maybe
Too
when
much
they're
millet.
done,
So.
we'll fill them for a
How
little
are
while, just to
things
kind
at
of
the
see how things are
firehouse?
going.
Good?
I
You know?
really wouldn't, because
Yeah.
we're keeping an eye on that.
Yeah,
And it
okay.
seems the flocks that are
I
being
like the new
affected
chief.
Are more
are
for the wild.
commercial flocks.
That's what I was,
He's more
yeah.
sociable.
You know, it's not really affecting the wild flocks.
I
Right.
don't,
So
you know.
just
Let's
keep
hope
your
that's
eye.
what it stays that way, you know?
They're,
And we don't have,
Some of
we
the
don't
guys- some
have
of the
chickens,
people are nice
our
and
neighbor's
some
got
are
like 3 chickens, because the hawk got one of them, whatever.
Right.
And she lets her do her thing, but I'm, you know, I'm not worrying about, I'm not getting concerned about myself with that. But I just was thought, just to kind of see.
Yeah, I really wouldn't worry, because you're doing everything the right way
Right, okay, thank
to
you.
avoid any type of cross-contamination. And
Yeah.
like I said,
You can't do
we're
that
not
either.
seeing it in the wild flocks, it's the
now, do you,
commercial
do you
flocks that are
do
being
you still go
affected.
swimming down here? Where'd you go? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the information,
I
and
was gonna say, I knew
best
you
of
did
luck with your
that.
bird, because one of the birds that I had for over 20, I had a senegal ferret. It was actually caught in the wild. I mean, I didn't know too much about it way back when.
My African
If
gray
they
was wild
haven't
caught.
since
Yeah, I
you
would
went
never do that again, but that's besides the point. I was young and stupid, I guess, and I had that for like 25 years, and then he ended up getting some kind of cancer and this and that. But, you know, so the one I have now is like 30 years old, but I've had birds all my life.
Right.
You know. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your education.
Thank you.